Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we're going to look at painting the Skylark crew from the Core Space game. We're going to work on Capt Weaver. The model has been given a gray prime and then a white zenithal pre-shading, kind of deal. Using an airbrush, Patriot 105, spraying it around 20 psi, apply these. And basically, we're going to use contrast, and we are going to use Flesh Terror's red, basically for the vest. We're just going to get right into the model here. Now, these models are from the game Core Space. They are small little guys, kind of similar to a lot of board game type of plastic. So just a little bit of mold line cleaning and anything like that was done to the model, but otherwise they're pretty darn good details on them. So you can see here we're just doing the vest and applying it onto the knee pads, and we're just very carefully working our way through. The kind of brush I'm using here is a older heavy metal brush. It's pretty much like a standard GW kind of brush, but it's got some really nice long hairs to it, so that's the kind of brush I'm using for, I think, pretty much the entire model. Gilliman Flesh is next, and I'm applying this right obviously onto the face and the hand that is holding the shotgun. And as you can see, I'm just letting it kind of pool up into some little spots there, just trying to take a very kind of controlled type of application of it. Now, in hindsight, I really wasn't happy with how the flesh looks, as the gray and the brown kind of give you this kind of odd kind of color, and I just wasn't happy with that, so we'll come back and fix that later. Basilicum Gray is next. This is being applied straight out of the bottle. Most of these contrasts are being applied straight out of the bottle. If I use thinners, I will show. And just really quickly here, I'm allowing this to be fairly generous onto the hair as well as the shin guards at the moment. Now, I am going to do a little bit of non-metallic metal with the shin guards as well as his robotic arm and shoulder pads. So stay tuned for that. As you can see, as I'm working with the contrast, I'm finishing the brushstroke in an upward motion as I want more of the color to gather at the high points of the guards. Next is our Garros Dune. This is going to be just for his undershirt under his vest, and so simply just one coat here, and I allow a little bit more to kind of build up closer to where his belt line is. Just get a little bit more separation, get a little deeper color there. And when I did the zenithal pre-shade, there was more the white gathering up on top of by his sternum as opposed down by his belly. Leviathan Blue is next. This is going to be for his pants, turning his gray pants blue. You can see it was pretty straightforward as we apply the contrast. Now, these guys are pretty darn small. You can see actually I hit a little area there with a little extra primer is just from when it was I was spraying it and it was on my fingers and I ended up touching a point. But I wasn't terribly worried about that because I knew I would be using a darker color there and it would pretty much just cover it right up, so I wasn't particularly worried about it. Cygor Brown is next. This is one of my favorite colors to use, especially for this type of application, as I'm basically going to do this to his entire belt as well as the little pouches all around the guy, his holsters, everything basically around his midsection is getting a nice little layer of this color. Oh, and there's also his boots too. I lied, it's his boots as well. I wanted to go a darker color for the boots, but I didn't want to use black, so I said, you know what, Cygor Brown is really fantastic. This is one of my favorite colors from this color range that Citadel has produced for these contrast paints. And I also do his little cigar as well. He's got a little cigar in his mouth. Don't smoke. Black Templar is next. This is all contrast. And you can notice here that I'm pretty much using contrast almost the entire way through here. And, honestly, it allows you to get a lot of things done fairly quickly, especially if you're only looking for just a tabletop type of finish. Absolutely nothing wrong with using these colors for this role. It's pretty much what they were designed for. You can see here I'm doing the ends of his hair, as I really only wanted his hair to kind of have a gray appearance. And so at the ends of his hair, basically like at his hairline, he's gray, and then the ends of his hair are still dark. Next is Blood Angel's Red. This is going to be just for his little power fist, and I just wanted some extra color on that fist and everything like that, so I said, let's just do it red. I was considering doing yellow, but I said no, red is fun too. Also, it's on his fingertips as well, on his little power glove. Power glove. And then I throw a little bit more on the upper half of each of those little areas. Again, I was, toying with the idea of doing this whole non-metallic metal pretty much all over the metal surfaces, but we'll just do it just for the gray areas. I end in yellows next, and this is simply for his elbow joint or whatever it is. Again, just to kind of tie in most of the colors. You can see we actually have pretty much a primary color scheme going on for this guy. Red jacket, yellow shirt, and blue pants. Basilicum gray is next. We're going to use some contrast medium. We're going to use roughly a 1-to-1 type of ratio here. So you can see I put down 2 drops contrast, 2 drops of Basilicum gray, just thin it out a bit. And again, we're going to begin building up a little bit deeper color onto these metallic bits. And again, because I'm kind of going for a bit of a non-metallic metal look, I'm pushing that color up towards the high points of each of the little segments of armor. So we're going to do that for his shoulder pad, his shin guards, and as well as his punchy fist. You can see because it's really thinned out, you can see it's leaves quite a bit of the primer showing through, which is fine because again we can control the reaction and control how far down we push these colors. And in fact, I do wait for it to dry a little bit, and I do begin to apply a few more layers between phases here. I don't quite show everything here, but you can see I'm pushing just more of that deeper color towards the center of the shoulder pad, letting it kind of build, and on his fist I build it towards his knuckles as well, and then go around other areas of his shoulder pad. You can see here this was after the that second or third layer was dry, and I come in and add just a little bit more. I throw a little bit of a streakiness on there just for giggles sake. Again, these pieces are pretty darn small. They're pretty much like a true scale kind of size. Uthran gray with some Lamian medium. We're going to thin this out just a little bit here, and we are going to do some edging. And basically we're just going to do like the lower edges as well as some of the high points on the armor as well. I'm catching some of those rivets and catching some of the edges of the metallic parts here, and also around like where we created these red bits. And I wasn't terribly worked up about kind of going outside the spaces on some of those areas because I laid some of that darker gray on top of that red. I really wasn't that concerned about it. At arm's length, this is quite a bit actually, and so again, I'm not too worried about it. And you can see here I'm just simply edging very, very lightly because we have the color thinned out, and we're just using this little brush here just to create a little bit of high points and everything like that. I'm not worried about coming in and hitting with any kind of white or anything like that, and really kind of pushing the shininess nature of the metallic metal, just throwing some streaks in there as well, just again to make the eye convinced that they're looking at something that is possibly a metallic surface. And so for the shin guards, the same thing, just simply highlighting the lower portions as well as the high portions and trying to catch those edges on the shin guards and everything like that. You can see on the shoulder pads here, again, we're just catching just those edges. Again, it's really, really fast, really, really simple. It's not terribly complex, and it's pretty straightforward. Next is Black Templar. I do believe we're going to work on the eyes. So really quickly here, I like using the Black Templar in this regards because you lay just a little bit down and it creeps in around the eyeball. And really all I'm looking for is that black line around the eyes. Next, I'm going to switch to some White Scar. We're going to do just the eyeball itself. And again, I'm pretty much using the same brush I've been using right from the beginning. It comes to a nice point here. You can see he's got this really scary, ominous look to him now. So we're going to come back in with the Black Templar, and we're going to create the pupils of his eyes. And again, I'm still using the same brush and just a nice little tiny little but a tiny little dot right into the eye, and bang, you have a staring eyeball. So his eyes are a little bit starey, and I was kind of wasn't happy with the look of the flesh, and so I said, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to clean this up. So we're gonna use Kislev flesh. Thin it down, just basically the moisture in the residual moisture in the bristles to thin the color out just ever so slightly. And basically we're just going to start laying in some highlights. And so I catch the brow, the top of the forehead, end of the nose, lips, cheekbones, and everything like that. And you can see it looks all right. I do the knuckles on his hand as well, and then I decide, okay, it looks a little too stark and a little too bright, essentially, not fitting with the rest of the model. So I come back in with the Gilman flesh, and I don't think I thinned this, or I might have thinned this down just a little bit with a little bit of water, and then begin just basically pushing this around. I don't worry if brown hits into any of the eyes, because again, that'll kind of knock some of that stark whiteness out of the eyes as well, as long as you don't let it pool up anywhere, and it gives you a nice even tone on the face and the flesh. And that is it. And so once it's all said and done, that's pretty much Captain Weaver for the Skylark crew from the Core Space game. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and hopefully you give it a try. And I want to thank all my patrons for all their support. And if you're considering patron support, I would really appreciate it. Of course, you can also hit that like and subscribe, share, and all that other usual social media goodness.